Hi, it's Todd Rielage, your Kilimanjaro Africa Fire Mission trip leader. Just introducing this next video for January. Today we're going to be talking about the itinerary, not in too much detail, but just giving you a basic overview of what each stop looks like and the different elevation changes and whatnot, and what to expect. And then the second part of it, we're going to talk a little bit about what you should start doing to start preparing your body physically for Kilimanjaro. Everything from leg exercises to different cardio options and things like that. So the way this trip is shaping up, on December 4th or 5th, you're flying out from the US in order to fly into Nairobi, Kenya. Depending on where you are in the US and where you're coming from, you're going to look at anywhere from 15 to 20-hour flights. Normally from the middle of the United States, at least the times I've been over, it's a 2-flight trip. We've been lucky enough to do that, but it just depends where you're flying from. Of course, on December 6th, we're all meeting. Once we get shuttled from the airport, we all get to meet at the Gracia House, which is a wonderful facility and hotel in Nairobi. We'll all get to meet each other finally and put faces to names and kind of shake down our gear for the trip. Then on December 7th, we're going to take a tour of the Missions of Hope International complex there in Pagani. It's a wonderful time to walk through the Mathare Valley as well, learn a little bit about the culture, and certainly meet a lot of different people, and just observe kind of the great things that they're doing there at Missions of Hope. On December 8th, we are going to be traveling from Nairobi by bus to Tanzania, Moshi, Tanzania. It's about a 7 to 8 hour bus ride with stops. It's a fun ride. It's a great experience crossing the border and all that. We'll have more on that to come as well, but just a great experience to see Africa and sometimes even see some of the animals that are out. I know when we went before, I saw camel, ostrich, different things like that out just on the bus ride. That night we're going to be staying at the Springlands Hotel, which is run by our tour guide company. I've not been there personally, but talking to them and looking at the pictures, it looks like a wonderful facility in Moshi in order to keep us rested and get us rested for the next day. So December 9th, we're going to be starting our trek up Kilimanjaro. We're going to load up from Moshi and take a bus, smaller bus, depending on how many people we have, to the Machame Gate, which is at about 4,500 feet. We're going to then start climbing with the porters, with all our stuff, and up to the Machame camp, which is at about 9,500 feet. So we're looking at well over 4,000, almost 5,000 feet vertical climb that day. We go very, very slowly. It's a beautiful tropical rainforest that we get to hike through. Never seen anything like it. It's a wonderful experience. So we obviously are going to camp there. We get up the next morning, December 10th, and we start hiking to the Shira camp. So we actually climb almost 3,000 feet that day. It's not quite as heavy as the day before, and we start getting into a little bit different temperate zone at that point. On December 11th, we climb from the Shira camp. We climb up to the Lava Tower, which is a vertical climb of 2,600 feet, all the way then back down to Barranco Camp, which is a descent of 2,200 feet. So one of the things we like to do, or the adage is, you climb high and sleep low, and whenever you start encountering significant altitude, which at this case we'll be up over 15,000 vertical feet off of sea level at the Lava Tower. So that helps our body acclimate a lot better. So that's one of the reasons we do that. On December 12th, we get up at the Barranco camp and we start climbing the huge Barranco wall. It's very intimidating to look at, but it's really not that hard to do. It's more of a nice boulder scramble, but not even that extent. There's a nice trail that goes up it, and it's a lot of fun. Great pictures from the Barranco Wall. So we hike all the way up to Barafu Camp. So that day we've climbed about 2,000 feet to get up to the Barafu Camp. So this is a big day because we try to get rested. We go to bed early that night, and we get up on December 13th around midnight, and we start our summit push, our 4,400 foot climb to Uhuru Peak, which is the actual peak of Kilimanjaro. So once we get up to that summit, we only have probably 10-15 minutes on the summit to take in your pictures, all that, and then we climb back down, believe it or not, over 9,000 feet to the Mueca Camp. That is a tough day, and that is why we are going to train the way we need to train in order to be prepared. Because what we want to do is have an enjoyable experience on this mountain, and the better prepared we are, the more enjoyable it's going to be. So, believe it or not then, December 14th, we come back out of the National Park of Kilimanjaro, and they meet us, and they take us back to the Springland Hotel, where we spend a night there, resting, celebrating, recuperating from our summit. And then on December 15th, we head back to Nairobi from Moshi via the same bus, and then we catch our flights home. All right, now that we've talked about the itinerary, let's transition over into certain exercises that you can start even a year out where we are to help prepare your body for the Kilimanjaro trek. Now, a little bit about the Kilimanjaro trek. It is not rock climbing. It is, at the most, there are some larger rocks that you get to scramble over, but it's hands and feet. It's not, there's a trail going up these rocks at the Barranco Wall. It is not an intense rock climbing experience. It's not even really a mountaineering experience. Most people describe it as a trek, which means you don't need any kind of ropes, you don't need any kind of special equipment. You're basically walking up Kilimanjaro until you reach the summit. There are different tactics and techniques and skills we're going to teach you throughout this year to help prepare you to be efficient with your body mechanics. But in order to use these body mechanics appropriately, we need to have a good foundation for your cardiovascular health and some good muscle development, especially in your legs, in the right places, so that you don't tire out as easily and you have a more enjoyable trip. Having said all that, I want to remind everybody that consulting your physician before you start a new workout program is keys to success. We want to make sure that you are fit enough to start a workout program. The good thing is that Kilimanjaro doesn't require you to be a marathon runner or a huge sprinter or a swimmer or anything like that. You don't need to be a top athlete to get up Kilimanjaro. All you need is a little bit of determination and willpower, the right technique and some efficiency, and a little bit of lead time is what we're having here in order to prepare yourself to do this mentally and physically. Okay, so I'm going to start off by saying the most important part of Kilimanjaro is dealing with the altitude. If you take this climb and just put it in the Smoky Mountains, or you put it in the flatlands of Indiana or Ohio, and you just do it on a treadmill and you're closer to sea level, most people aren't going to have much trouble doing this hike over the days. What the equalizer is the altitude. Now we need to prepare ourselves for the altitude, and the best way to do this is to use our oxygen efficiently when on the mountain. And to do this, we need to train our cardiovascular system. It's an important part because it can kind of suck you in at the beginning. The first day or two, you're not quite at altitude yet, but as the days go on, the altitude gets higher and higher. That cardiovascular fitness becomes more paramount in your success of summiting and just having a more enjoyable experience. So the main thing here is whether you run, whether you walk, whether you ride your bike, or you swim, or a combination of all these things, you need to build up a very good cardiovascular fitness level. And they talk a lot about VO2 max. That's the the volume of oxygen that your body can consume in a certain amount of time and use efficiently. The higher VO2 max you have, generally, the more success you have while mountain climbing. The kicker there is altitude sometimes just doesn't care, and it affects everybody differently at different times for different reasons. So you can have the most tip-top athlete with the highest VO2 max still get altitude sickness or still feel like they can't summit something even like Kilimanjaro if it's just not their time. So if you're new to any kind of cardiovascular exercises, whether it be running, walking, a combination of both, swimming, biking, whatever you're going to do, consult your physician because they can at least give you a good baseline for where to start. The main thing is don't get too comfortable. In order to improve your cardiovascular fitness, you're going to have some variety in that, whether you're varying speeds, whether you're varying activity, in order to get your heart conditioned to keep pumping that 12-hour trek up Kilimanjaro each day. So while it's a process, just keep in mind the goal at the end is to have a great time on Kilimanjaro. So one important thing to remember when doing your cardiovascular workouts is that you need to train for the long haul. Kilimanjaro is a long trek, 5-6 days on that mountain, and it can wear on you. You don't need to be running miles at 5-minute paces unless that's what you already do. You're not training to break a PR in your 5K. You're more training for the long haul, the marathon. Not that you need to do marathon training either, but what you need to do is keep the mindset of length over intensity sometimes. So while you may want to get your workout done, especially as we progress towards the later months and closer to our climb, you may want to get your workouts done in 20-30 minutes and just run at a faster clip or something like that. But you really need to think about it more as time on your feet. We're going to be on our feet hiking 8, sometimes 10, 12 hours a day. And that can take a toll on lots of other systems, not just your muscles. It can take a toll on your skeletal system, the ligaments, everything that ties everything together. So any kind of cardiovascular activity that you do, at some point you're going to need to lengthen out some of that activity so that you get, quote, time on your feet in order to condition your body to just keep plugging along. So in addition to cardiovascular workout, how you can get this time on your feet is mimicking the activity. The first and best thing to do is to get out and just hike. If you have any kind of hills around, any kind of terrain, get out into that park or wherever it is and just start hiking. You know, it's a lot more enjoyable to be moving. So that mimics the activity. You go up and down hills, you're on your feet, and that, believe it or not, will prepare you probably more than anything for Kilimanjaro. What you can do if you don't have those, like I'm in Indiana and I have a bunch of fields and flatlands, I use stairs and a Stairmaster in order to get my steps in and try to get that elevation change, get my body and my skeletal system used to just the constant monotony of climbing. So the important thing when you are out hiking, or you have to use a step mill or a step block like we'll show you here in a bit, is that you're using the proper form. The main thing is you want to remain upright as much as possible. You don't want to lean forward, lean back, lean to the left, lean to the right in order to get your foot to where it needs to go. You need to use your skeletal system in order to rest in between steps, and they call this the rest step. So two different big important things with the rest step is that your body is upright, and with a backpack on, the upright torso allows you to breathe, and it also centers the weight over your skeletal system better. Instead of leaning forward or leaning backwards, it will obviously throw your weight distribution off, which then your muscles have to compensate for, which uses more oxygen. So if we can remain balanced in our hiking form, we can save a lot of energy. So what staying upright also does is it allows us to get full inhalation and expansion of our lungs. It's going to get harder and harder to get good breaths as we get higher, and keeping a straight torso allows room for that lung expansion and that oxygen exchange to happen way down deep in the lungs. So that's a very, very important point. As we tire, we tend to start slouching, or we tend to start using accessory muscles in order to compensate for our slouching, and that really starts to tire us out more. So it's kind of a downward spiral effect. So if we can start with really good form and good balance, then hopefully when things get a little bit tougher, we can remember that good form, go back to it, and make sure we're being the most efficient hiker possible. So the second part of being an efficient hiker with that rest step is the bottom half of your system. So the upper half is upright. Your legs are locking in between each step, which gives your muscles a mini break when hiking. This can be a little different feeling if you're not used to the rest step. A lot of people do it just by the nature of their hiking technique, but for new hikers especially that have never seen this concept or topic, it can feel a little different. So what this rest step means is that when you take a step, and we'll show it here on the step mill here, when you're taking a step, you're trying to make your foot as flat as possible. Not always possible considering the terrain, but there's a lot more of flat surfaces than you think when going up, especially a trek like Kilimanjaro. Whether you have to use a rock or some other type of surface in order to get your foot flat, that is going to save your calf muscles. If you flex your foot or have to point your toe forward in order to get footing, then that puts more strain on the muscular system of your legs. So very important, and you have to remind yourself of this hundreds of times during a trek like Kilimanjaro, to look for those flat spots in order to make your foot as flat as possible. So once you find that flat surface, and of course on a step mill it's going to be very easy to find that flat surface. Once you find that flat surface, you're going to load your weight onto that leg and stand straight up using good form, and you kind of rock your body forward a little bit in order to get your leg to swing to the next step. And then in that moment when your next foot hits that flat spot that you found, your back leg is locked, so that even if it's for 1/10 of a second or a 1/2 a second, you are getting, that back leg is getting a mini break, because all of the weight then is on your skeletal system and not your larger muscles of your leg, which are going to use a lot of oxygen to maintain strength. So it has, that's why good balance is so important, because obviously if you're wobbling to get to that point, you're using all those leg accessory muscles to stabilize. So once we start all this cardiovascular training, and then you progress to outdoor hiking and all that that we just talked about, it's so important that once we graduate to wearing a backpack, that we wear a backpack when we do these hikes as well, so that we can really train our body to be as efficient as possible with that pack on and that weighted pack as well. We'll talk about that sort of cardiovascular training in the next coming months. Right now we want you to start getting that cardiovascular base done and hiking without a backpack. So unfortunately I don't have any good video of me doing an example of a rest step. Right now we kind of have to just watch me on the step mill as I showed earlier. My apologies, but it is January. I live in Indiana, and it takes a little while to get to a good place in order to do a good rest step and show you what I'm talking about. So in the coming months, I'll definitely do a revisit with the rest step, making sure we have all of the technique down, and then show you exactly what I'm talking about. In the meantime, you can Google rest step. It's a known technique. It's not new, nothing I came up with here for sure. It's something we use on Rainier and especially Kilimanjaro when we need to save oxygen. So now that we talked a little bit about hiking technique, And as I said, we'll revisit that before. And we've discussed cardiovascular fitness levels and what you need to be doing right now in order to get your body prepped. Last thing we want to do is talk a little bit about a few of the exercises you can do for your lower body. The other ones are very standard. It's a simple lunge without any weights, and as I'm showing here, maintain your good upright position, step forward, and try to maintain good balance, and go down as far as you can comfortably. Obviously, everybody has different ranges of motion. Step back and then alternate your foot. You do 3 sets of these 3 times a week, 3 sets of 10, 3 times a week. For a couple months, you'll be surprised at what your legs will be able to accomplish. If it's too easy for you, again, you can always throw in more reps. You can also add weights, as you see here as well. And you can vary the weight, anything from 2-pound weights on each hand to 20-pound weights on each hand, depending on what your fitness level is and what you want to accomplish. So the other leg exercise that I recommend is just a simple squat. This is just going to build up your glutes a little bit more. So what this looks like is just you're going to take your feet shoulder width apart, and you're going to just bend at the knees, keeping your body and your abdomen and torso upright as possible. You can extend out your hands in front of you for good stability and balance. Try to keep your feet flat on the floor. Don't rock forward onto your toes. Go down as far as you can and then stand back up. Again, simple reps, 10, a set of 10, 3 times a week. Again, do them after your lunges or before your lunges, or rotate them. Main thing is switch it up, and you'll be surprised over a couple months on how much strength you've gained just by using your body weight in order to do this. Don't feel like you have to go down as far as I went down there. It's just to do what you can do. And then don't hesitate to throw in really good stretching. I won't go into a lot of stretching here. Mainly, you need to have a good hamstring stretch, a good quad stretch, a good calf stretch, a good glute stretch, and then a hip flexor stretch. So if you need any help on any of those, feel free to email me. And YouTube is your friend. You have to sometimes watch that, but most techniques on there are very basic. If you haven't done any of those type of stretches before, you can, I'm sure, find somebody that's active that has done those, a runner or something close to you, and family or friends that can maybe show you, or get a qualified fitness professional to show you as well. Next, we want to talk a little bit about core work. And this is important because when we wear that backpack, our abdominal muscles and our core are really at work trying to keep our good balance point in the center and over our feet. So having a good, strong core will assist us in this process. You don't need 6-pack abs or anything like this. We just need to do regular core work to make sure that we can maintain good balance throughout our trip. And the 2 exercises I would just recommend right away are some sort of sit-up maneuver, whether it's a standard sit-up or any kind of variation or need to use that your fitness coordinator perhaps that you have, or a doctor recommends. Just a basic sit-up with some basic reps, nothing too fancy. And then the second one be to add in a plank. If you've never done a plank before, this is a picture of a plank. Notice that arms are at a 90-degree angle and my back is straight. What we don't want to have is an arched back going downward like a smile, and you certainly don't want an arched back going upwards like a frown. We want that nice straight plank that puts the activity in your abdominal muscles. So start out with 15-20 seconds if you've never done a plank before, and believe it or not, over time you'll be able to do 1 minute, 2 minutes, sometimes 3 minutes depending on your fitness level. You don't need to be a superstar at planks. You just need to have some good core base laid down so that when you wear that pack, you can wear it and not fatigue in your abdominal region. Just like cardiovascular fitness was mainly about endurance, your muscular fitness with your legs needs to be about endurance as well. So don't think you need to be squatting and lifting hundreds of pounds in order to do this. No, those simple exercises that I showed you along with the cardiovascular workout will do the trick. If you can find a box to mimic the step up, if you don't have a step mill, that's great too. But with all these things, both the cardiovascular and the muscle workouts, you need to make sure that you're training for endurance and not strength or sprinting, if you will. As we said before, Kilimanjaro is very good at tiring you out over days, not minutes. So you need to be able to recuperate. And the way to do this is, if you think it's too easy, don't necessarily add so much weight. Add another set. Add a few more reps to your set. Do it one more time a week, things like that. And lastly, not that you shouldn't do upper body workout, but upper body really isn't as necessary for Kilimanjaro. It's not like you need to be doing a bunch of bicep and tricep exercises or chest exercises. Some simple back exercises, if you want to throw those in as well, are fine. Obviously none of those things hurt, but in order to get up Kilimanjaro, those two things, the cardiovascular and the leg exercises, are really key, along with that abdominal exercise to keep you on the straight path going up Kilimanjaro and hopefully to its summit. So during this process, if you're like me, I've got a couple pounds to lose before we head up Kilimanjaro. So it's one of those that it's kind of a nice challenge as well, to kind of make yourself the best you can be for you before we set off on this challenge. It's obviously worth noting that the fewer pounds we take up with us on Kilimanjaro, usually the better oxygen can be transitioned in our lungs and used by the body more efficiently, especially at altitude. So that doesn't have to necessarily be body weight. It can also be pack weight in our backpacks. So that's going to be a different topic, because we can change that pretty easily. But body weight, if you're going to lose a couple pounds, might as well start soon. Just doing those basic exercises is a good start. Doing the cardiovascular workouts is huge, and of course getting out and mimicking the activity that we're going to be doing, which is climbing and hiking through the woods and getting some terrain differential and using those different techniques. You'll be surprised if you eat right, that you'll start to see that body composition change ever so slightly in the right direction. All right, so in this segment we talked about the itinerary in a little bit of detail, and we talked about some exercises and where we need to start in order to start getting our bodies ready to take on this huge challenge of raising money for Africa Fire Mission by hiking Kilimanjaro. So I hope your next month is filled with good hikes and good workouts. And as we start to physically prepare, we'll start to mentally prepare as well for this big challenge. So until next time, be safe.